Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to talk round 15 team discussion and answer all the questions that have been sent in this week. As always, check us out on all our platforms: SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and Twitter. Supercoach Insider 100 to get Chris, Ben, and myself, in particular Ben, and Swiz26 for me direct. Thank you once again to our sponsors, Splash Vodka, Earn You, and Manscaped. We really appreciate your support, as well as the public out there who continue to interact with us each and every week. For me, last week, we had a 1988 to finish off the bye rounds, which put me up to now 1,545 overall. So I've shaved about 4,500 spots during the byes. Sitting, I think it's about 400 points short of Ben, who's in about 160. So been closing the gap on my co-host there. So I've been pretty happy with how I've performed over the byes. Definitely there's been some massive ranking changes. I think my mate there, Abdul, dropped about 30 spots of that, but trying to build his team up for the end of the year. I'll give a shout out to Michikos. I think it was you, buddy, that went up 2 spots over the 3 rounds. So at least, it was a slight improvement there, mate. But yeah, there was definitely some, definitely jumping up and a few people falling back, as it always happens around the bye time. It's an important time of the year. But it's great to finally get our 4 teams back. And what a week of footy it's going to be. All the top 8 teams playing each other. Port and Gold Coast as well. Collingwood with their issues from the weekend with the Goey. Not as much with the other 2 boys, but definitely just to see how that circus plays out against the Giants. So there's some important matchups, and even Essendon and West Coast for how the spoon might shape up. So really looking forward to this round of footy. Managed to get to the game last week, Richmond-Carlton, which was obviously I had the podcast on Friday, which I was up and about. It's good actually. Got down to some VFL on the weekend and watched Coburg-Richmond, which was the Channel 7 game on the Sunday. Watched my cousin go around and play against Ivy Soldo in the ruck, so thought he didn't do too bad on the hitouts, but it's always hard, playing against 2 seasoned rucks. I think Richmond had 18 listed AFL players in that match, so that was always going to be a struggle for Coburg. So it was good to get around to see some footy, and especially some local and young boys. The one that I'll mention straight off that was Sonsi. Continues to do what he's been doing all year in the VFL and racking up possessions. Definitely one on the radar going forward with Richmond's kind of midfield woes now, with obviously Cochin injured, and don't really have a huge amount of depth in that area. So maybe he'll be a sneaky rookie. Him and Elijah Hollins is the other one that continues to get named. We've actually been blessed with the rookie defenders in the last few weeks during the byes, and I think it's, as some people can see there with Charlie Dean in my back line, he's going to be playing VFL this week with the view that he could possibly be in the AFL side as early as next week. So, yeah, we've had a few options come in. So with my side now, I've got I had the full premium until Mr. Butters decided to get injured after dominating that first quarter the other day. So my 2 trades last week, as I talked about, was Callum Mills coming in, which was something I decided on ended up deciding that on the Saturday morning, taking Petrarca out. I was big on Jeremy Cameron all week, and I know a few people did get him in. Supercoach Mama, I was definitely talking to her about that, and that was a bit of a late change there, only because kind of I was a bit worried about the weather. I had a couple of people messaging me about the weather over in Perth, and the kind of the worry that how would key forwards go there, and find out about Geelong being in their tough training block, which was kind of a last minute thing. So decided to go against Cameron as much as I really wanted him in my team, and I did bring in Isaac Heaney at the time, but that was a last-minute trade as well out, which is unfortunate because he did well, but Himmelberg ended up in my side, so I was pretty happy with that cash grab. He was started in defence, which was awesome. Once Bruce went down, played a bit in the ruck, so hopefully he goes back in defence this week, and Briggs probably comes in. So I'm pretty happy with my side outside of Butters, and I've got to kind of make a decision on what I want to do with him. So I've got some cash sitting there from a personal point of view, which was about 230,000. Still have Rosas in there. In a perfect world, I'd love to have Rosas play, but I can do Butters up to Bont and Rosas to Jackson, which is kind of tempting. I'm not as big on the Jackson train as some, but we do know he's going to be playing as the sole ruck with Gorney gone down and also Magic Door, who would be their backup ruck. So there's definitely value there, but it just depends like how quickly Gorn comes back. I'm only sitting with the 5 trades left, so I'm trying to be as tight with my trades on the run home as possible. In a perfect world, there is a world where if I could get Bont in, and that might be a case of holding Roses for 1 week and playing him, which I don't really want to do this week, but to get in Bont the following week, and then keeping Butters just to save the extra trade and use Butters as the loophole player. But there's another part of me that's like, well, I may as well just move Butters on, go get Bont, and then look at other options for Roses. Heaney is somebody I do really like. I do like Jez Cameron, as I continue to talk about. So, yeah, I've got a couple decisions to make there. The other one I don't mind is Sean Darcy. I think in 2 weeks' time it's going to really high break even. I feel like it's 190, but I will double check that because I don't want to give wrong information for everybody out there. Where's my break evens? And there are not just him, but there's a few interesting ones with break evens. I know Tommy Stewart's 210 break even, Jackie Steele 199, who was going to be back this week. Sean Darcy's 179 break even. So there are definitely 3 guys who will get cheap over the next few weeks. Darcy's currently sitting at 558, so expect him to drop down to at least 520 next week. Jack Steele over the next couple of weeks could get down to that 530 mark, and Stewart definitely could be seeing 520, even lower depending on how he goes the next 2 weeks. So for those people who don't have full teams or are looking at luxury trading or bringing in your M9s or your D7s or stuff like that, there will be some really good players who will be a bargain. But overall, as I said, pretty happy with it, and probably the biggest thing for me is I've avoided Tim English. I did debate about it last week, not having him and now having the Witts Cameron lineup. Haven't the rucks been absolutely disastrous this year outside of Witts, touchwood, and even Nankervis, and that seems to be about the second best or second most durable ruck. Riley O's obviously a good pick, but if we look the whole season, got dropped early in the year, so yeah, that's been a bit of an issue. But as just kind of a team and how it's set up, I'm really happy with it. Having that midfield really handy with Mills now in there. It's probably one of my worst trades of the year, Petrarca instead of Mills, that game when I was down at Launceston. But at the time it looked a really good pick to get in Petrarca, so yeah, that's the way things go. But yeah, my midfield of Oliver, Neil, Laird, Mills, Miller, McRae, Cripps and Zach Merritt. Cripps and Merritt are a little bit of a worry at the moment, but hopefully Zachy Merritt against the Eagles will bounce back. And Cripps with these big games coming up, hopefully he leads his, from example, in that midfield as their skipper. My early there VC, I've got McRae playing the Hawks. There is a chance if Bont does come in, it could be him, but I'm leaning towards McRae into Laird, the safety of Laird. The 114 was slightly disappointing last week, but that's kind of what we get from Laird. We know it's a safe option as a backup. I don't mind usually putting on the more riskier guys. I went Mills last week, so I was kind of happy with that. Obviously, those who had McRae did very well. So, straight into, we'll actually do the ins and outs. We've got the one game, Melbourne versus Brisbane. Wiedemann, May and Bedford are back. So May's back from that indiscretion. Out is Turner injured. Chandler, Maxi Gawn and Mitch Brown has been dropped. For the Lions, Payne, Tunsil, which is the new player, and Thomas Berry. And out is Fort Gardner, Zorko, unfortunately injured, and Zach Bailey. Good player, Zach Bailey. So that'll probably even up the game a bit more with Gawn out and with May in. You'd nearly say the D's should be favourites at home, but I'm actually really looking forward to this game of footy. Both midfields are really strong, but obviously the rucks, Jackson versus Big O, will be interesting to see how that goes and who actually chops out for Jackson. And that's why I expect probably why Wiedemann's come in to give him a bit of a chop out. All right, straight into the questions now. We've got Cliffo. Bringing in a mid for Butters was between Walsh and Parrish, but now considering Steele not fussed on his break even as the trade needs to happen this week. Silly to bring him in without having a look first. It's not silly to bring him in. We know what Jack Steele does. He's the leader. The Saints need to rebound back. Not that it affects Steele so much, but my worry for them is they have a really tough draw the next few weeks. They obviously do have West Coast and Hawthorn in there, but the Saints are the team that even if they'd beaten the Bombers, I still had dropping out. So that is something to think about. Like, still good enough to rack up again if they're winning or losing, but I think that's kind of will make it tougher. He's coming back from the injury. They've got more midfield depth now. We've obviously Crouch up and about, Sinclair playing in there. They've got Gresh, Billings back, Hunter Clark. So the reliance on Steele to come straight in and dominate like he did last year and the year before isn't as much. So I'm probably not even that keen on him unless he was like that sort of 5.20, 5.30 price. But like, you're not picking him for that money or the break even, because obviously you have the money and you want the points on field now. But yeah, the Swannies, at least it's probably going to be a high contested tackling game, so that usually suits him. But as I said, all those midfielders, Carlton, Freo, Doggies, I'm not completely sold on him as that option at M8. I'm gathering you're going to be bringing him on there, Cliffo. So if you're looking at those other midfielders around that same price, not knowing your other prices in there, I'm going to gather you've probably got Took. It gets actually a bit difficult because, like, who else is your, like, if you've got Walsh as the option, I'd probably be going Sam and Walsh if you can afford him. Who else have you said in there? If your debate was Walsh versus Parrish, show, I'd be bringing in Walsh, and that's my more favourite pick. But it's really interesting with these midfielders outside of your top guys, Leeds, McRae's, Mills, that everyone's having sort of really down weeks. Like, you only have to have a look at last week there. Like Benny Keys finally sort of had a fell. Josh Kelly with his 65. Petrarca's been up and down. Ollie Wines has looked pretty good and pretty solid and might be that left field option. But all midfielders are kind of going up and down. Cam Guthrie might be a good one too. Just to think of if you really wanted to go left field. But if you want the safety and you're up there, Walsh or even Brayshaw is probably the two I'm leaning towards. Maybe, and probably have Walsh. I'd go out of those three, Walsh, Steele, Brayshaw. So if you've got the chance to take Walsh, go get him. Anders, trading Butters for Bont a good move, even if Butters does come back next week, yes. And I'm even with my low trades, that's the one I'm leaning towards. I think even though the Doggies do have a tough draw, it's still the Hawks, it's still Bont. There's still a chance of making the finals. They should win this week. They do have the Saints in a couple of weeks, which will probably be that first real elimination final there. And the loser of that, you could probably put a fork in, but I still think Bont's good enough to continue to score well. The only problem is what happens if they completely come out of contention with 3 or 4 weeks to go. Do they kind of put him in ice or put him up the forward line? But Bont's still that good that he could kick goals up the forward line against any opposition, and they do play the Hawks and the Giants again. So, I think I'm more trusting on Bont than Butters. Butters, he looks so good in that first quarter and then gets injured, and that could have been fine with that game where we get to see that, massive score from him. And he does that. Like, there's those games where he just goes 130 and he looks like one of the better players in the comp. But other games, he puts those 50s up and depends on his role and kind of effort sometimes. So, he'll continue to get better. He's a talent, Butters. But, I think that is definitely a good move. Julie. Players I want all have huge break even, so plan to hold and have cover for now. Is waiting okay? Have 6 trades. We'll use 2 next week. The team complete. Is this the best option? And she said, I'm 1,500 off one player to Bont move. Don't want Swans players bar Mills. Any cheap guys you may be consider. I know some crystal ball stuff. Interesting. It depends, Julie. It all depends, I guess, what you're playing for. Where are you ranked, or if you're playing for leagues and are you in a good enough position you can wait, or do you need the wins now? So that's the first thing. You've got to, obviously you'll know that in the position you're in. If it's a case where you need points now, well, then you're just going to have to go get these players and get your best team on field. If you are in a position, let's just say you're in the top 4 in your league, and you can wait another couple of weeks to get these guys down, that'll allow you the ability to probably get an extra player in, because if all these players are dropping, say, 50 to even a couple of them, Stewart could drop, say, 80k. You've got maybe the ability there with your last trades to bring in an extra bench player that you could loophole as a backup. The problem is, and that's the same with me right now with the 5 trades, if we start getting injuries or COVID or stuff like that, how are we going to deal with it? Now, the 1 week injury, and that's why we all like to have the good loopholes, that's easy to cover. And that's where I know a bit of the discussion with Butters and how many trades you have, because it might be a 1 weeker, 2 weeker, you can kind of cover that. But then what do you start doing if you get like a 3, 4, 5 weeker? You do need to have some trades left. It's only round 15. We've still got 8 rounds of footy. Well, after this, 7 rounds of footy. So it's an interesting one. It's all team dependent and where you're going. Yeah, but the perfect move, you do want that one move to Bont. The worry is they are playing the Hawks, and what happens if Bont goes out and smashes his, it's 110 break even, I think. So goes out and does that. And then how do you get him in next week, especially if Roses doesn't play, or if Roses is named on the extended bench because they're playing in the last game? That could be a real issue. So, in a perfect world, you kind of want to get players in. But, 6 trades left. You might want to wait 1 more week as long as you're in a good enough position to do that. I'm gathering with huge break even, you're talking about Steele, Stewart. To Adrian, who's the best ruck option to replace Bruce? Sean Darcy, Darcy Cameron, considering Grundy due back soon, or considering Grundy's back soon, or Blicavs. The problem with Blicavs, as much as he's scoring so well, and I really do like the pick, and I keep saying this to Ben every week, is the problem with Stanley and playing ruck in his role. But he just continues to keep scoring. They've got a soft draw. I've seen a couple of people doing the double trade where they're trading down one of their rookie defenders, getting rid of one of them, bringing in, I think it's the Carlton player, defender ruck, and bringing Blicavs in, and then they've got Darcy Cameron already up in the forward line. So if they need to cover a backline player, Blicavs goes back, and then Darcy Cameron goes in the ruck, and then other side, like Blicavs stays in the ruck, and then Darcy Cameron goes forward. So it does give a lot of flexibility in your ruck, so I don't mind it. Blicavs should continue to score decent. It's just, are there better options than that? Well, and because the rucks are so up and down, it's kind of is a left field option, which you probably get knowing you're going to bank at least 90 from. In a perfect world, we always think we want more from the rucks, but just because the injuries are so inconsistent at the moment. I really love Sean Darcy. That's the one I'd love to move Darcy Cameron down in the forward line for, bring Sean Darcy in and work my loopholes there. And when he gets cheap, the problem is Meek's playing so well. I think he dominated the waffle last week. And the other part is in Darcy's injury concerns. He always gets injured, like he looks good and then gets injured. But then the other problem is they're playing the Blues this week. I think he went 190 or 193 last time he played Carlton, so he's got all the ability to come out and do that again and actually smash his break even. He's the one I do like. Hold off if you could in a perfect world, but if you can't, it's I don't mind it. I think the Blue Stars one's a bit different, but don't just expect more consistency. And then there's always the problem with Geelong, and this is the hard with not knowing. As Julie asked about Crystal Ball, how can you predict if they're going to rest and who they're going to rest their players? But Geelong do have a habit of doing that. They'll pick the right moments. They do have a couple of soft games. That's always a chance that's going to come into it. You do want teams who are vying for the top 4 or top 8 who have to keep winning, and that's what I thought of Geelong planning. But Scott did come out and say, they're playing it. They're trying to set themselves up for a flag. So they're going to do hard training runs. They're going to possibly rest players, whatever they need to do to get themselves right for finals. They're going to back themselves to finish, top 4, and it doesn't necessarily have to be top. It could be 4th, and back themselves that they'll be good enough to win those games. And that edge might get them over the line in that first final. So there are questions, and there's questions on everyone. I don't think you bring in Darcy Cameron now, as you said, with Grundy back. Do you look left field and go Nankaralio? In a perfect world, as I said, Darcy, wait one more week. But yeah, if you can't and you need the ruck now, just go and get Sean Darcy. He is the best point scorer of the lot, but there is massive question marks there, and there's question marks about everyone. And I feel like you bring in a new ruck and they're going to probably get injured as well. Look, Tim English now, concussion, likely to be 2 weeks. To L, after moves this week, how many trades left are too few? Or about right or luxury? Have 6 at the moment, no moves this week, and based off Supercoach Twitter, I feel like I'm rich. Anders says, if you're a millionaire, I'm a billionaire. I have 12 before trading. Anders, you are absolutely flying with trades, mate. As I said, I have 5. I would like to have 8 in a perfect world, and that's just because of a couple sideways throughout the year, a couple of injuries. Unfortunately, I had that period there where every player I seemed to bring in just got injured. English lasted me 1 week, Hall 2 weeks. I think I had Cripps, like probably the one in hindsight I should have kept, but I was really worried about that calf hammy, and then bringing him back in. So yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of been aggressive with the extra trades. Are sitting in that sort of mark of 5, 6, 7. So you kind of want that. If you've got that extra boost up your sleeve, that's even better. But yeah, in a perfect world, I think we want to be leaving at worst case this round 4 trades. But I still don't think that's enough. I feel like carnage is going to come at some point. I'll touch wood there that it doesn't happen. But like I copped it last year with that Sydney game, which I think was the last game of the round, where like Mills and a few others got COVID, and I had like 3 of them. And so I feel like something's going to happen. I don't know what. And that's kind of the other reason I've tried to spread my players as much as possible. I was talking to a couple other people in our A-League team chat. They've loaded completely up on Bulldogs, which is great because the Bulldogs players do score well. I'm a little against it because they're a tough draw, but what if something happens? Like COVID protocols are still there, unfortunately, and what if you copped all that in 1 week of that? It would just absolutely devastate your season. So, yeah, trying to spread your players, but in saying that, any player can miss at any point. So yeah, luxury would be anything over 8. You'd probably want 6 to 8. And yeah, if you start getting under 4, I think you're in a little trouble at the moment. But hopefully nothing happens. DV, trade Butters to Bont with negotiable, negligible. I'll absolutely butcher that. F7 backup, or keep Butters and get in Heaney as an F7 backup. I don't mind Heaney, as I said the other day. The problem is it's more because of his forward, but they do have a good run, the Swannies. Saints twice, which aren't easy, but I know they've got the Bombers in there. I'm pretty sure it is. I've got Cole Mills in front of me. Their draw, they do have North Melbourne, Adelaide, GWS in that run as well. So I think Heaney could score really well. He's cheap. His break even's low this week. If you're going to get him in, you've got to get him this week. So I think I don't mind Heaney, but if that helps you back up. Bont, as I said, is the obvious one, but can Heaney rival Bont? With their fixture, it's every possibility. We've seen Heaney go on those runs. We saw him how he started the year. Absolutely, there is a world where Heaney could absolutely smash it coming home and even outdo Bont. It's one of those risk versus rewards, and if you are bringing in Heaney over Bont, you're just hoping Bont, that niggle gets too much or the Dogs get out of contention, and then we know the Swannies are going to be fighting for that 6th, 7th, 8th spot. They wouldn't want to lose 1 or 2 quick ones because they could find themselves 9th or 10th. So I don't mind it, and it's something I'm seriously considering as well. What's it, 120, 130 grand cheaper for Bont's 575 at the moment. We've got Isaac Heaney, which is sitting at 453, so it's 120 grand difference. And it's what can you do with that 120 grand? As I said, I've got 236 in the bank. So like Butters to Heaney, which is actually making me cash, would be, and then what do we say, that 453. I think I'm just short of going Heaney and Bont in. So in that case, there's a part of me that's tempted to go Butters to Heaney, and then hopefully Roses plays, goes up value, and then I could possibly go like a Roses to Bont, but then it starts getting a bit low in the trade, so I don't mind it. If you're really worried about what your F7 backup's going to look like, maybe go Heaney, and then you could get, and keeping Butters is a fine F7, gives you the option to link into that M9 as well. So, and as I said, depends on your trade situation too. If you've got 7, 8, 9, 10 trades, well, go Bont, because that's not going to worry you, because then you can always trade people sideways if you get an injury. But if you're low on trades, maybe you probably need to keep Butters and bring Heaney in as that one option and go from there. T-Bone, is Bont a must-have? Only way I can afford is to put him at M8. I don't mind the flexibility with doing so either. Yeah, I don't mind that Bont in there. I've considered that as well. If there was a couple of ways I was looking at doing my team and having a forward mid as my M8. He's going to score well, but is he a must-have? I'll say no. I think he's still going to be the number one scorer, but how close can Heaney get? If you've got the cash and you're going to do nothing else with that cash, well, go get Bont. It's as simple as that, because he'll be, as I said, number one or up there enough as one of the highest scorers. But again, if that 120k getting, say, like a Heaney could do something better for you, or as a lot of people are thinking, like a Jackson type for those 4 or 5 weeks, while Gorn's out, and like people did last week, like myself with Himmelberg, could that be a more beneficial play for you on the long term? Well, possibly yes, but so if you've got the cash, mate, chuck him in there at M8. If you don't have to do it this week, then you might want to think one of those other guys, or does a Brayshaw type or waiting a week on Steele, could you get money up to get to Walsh? So they're all options too. But in saying that, Bont, what we're thinking, maybe 110 on the run home. It's a very good pick, and it does give you a swing option. Corey, any good options under 492? Best option for Butters, or should I use 2 trades and get Bont, Libba, who I don't have? Have 7 trades, but still need an F6 too. So technically 2 premiums. Wow, two premiums. If you've got the other cash, if you can get Bont and Libba, absolutely do that. If your best option under 492, well, I think, as I said, it's my man Heaney there. Who else have we got under that? We got highest price, 492. I know I've had this question about Himmelberg. You've missed out. Don't jump back on him. A couple of left fields actually we've been talking about in a couple of our group chats. Like Gresham's flying, but I'm just a little concerned about Steele in the draw. Jack Graham's getting like 8 to 10 tackles a week and has been absolutely killing it. If you wanted an absolute pod for your forward line at 489, Jack Graham's, since the Collingwood games, gone 103, 86, 130, 194. And I know I'm a little biased there as a Tiger man, but he is playing pure midfield, and with Cochin with his collarbone, he's going nowhere out of that midfield. So there's a sneaky little left field option for you, and he's in 1% of teams, 1,100 teams. So that's one definitely to consider. Tex Walker, I know a couple of people said I don't know flog policy, and that's why they didn't pick Jeremy Cameron either. But Tex is killing it, 91 on the weekend. Key forward is prone to have bad games. Do have the Roos this week down in Tassie. Jeremy Cameron killed them down there early in the year. They do have Hawthorn in a couple of weeks. They got, during the Supercoach finals, West Coast and North Melbourne. So Tex does need to be considered. And then Timmy Taranto, just watch to see if he comes back in. The other one we were also talking about left field options, Liam Baker for Richmond. Now, I prefer Jack Graham at looking at those sort of prices, but a couple of these guys, it's amazing where you kind of just completely ignore them and wouldn't ever think about them as Supercoach kind of options when we're talking about the big dogs. but they, like 5-6 weeks ago, as we said, you look at it and you look at them now and go, oh wow, I wish I jumped on sort of those guys. They get the right draw, they start playing really well, and they're flying. And of course now my phone doesn't want to work with his averages, but we'll get back to that when it reloads up. All right. And to finish that, I guess you got Heaney in there as well, who I do like, and I get the reasons why people don't want to bring him in. There is a burnt factor there, but I just like their draw. The Bombers did beat the Saints, bit improved there, but they do have to, how many wins are really the Bombers going to have on the run home? I'd have some confidence about having him in, at least kicking enough goals to be relevant. Apologies for the slight delay here as I move on to my other format. Just the Wi-Fi decides to drop in and out this side of town. So we've got forwards. No, it does not want to work for me. There we go. Forwards. Technology at its best. Mitchie Duncan's still there at 450. Rosie was brought up to me by a couple people. That's a no for me. Butters comes back. Those roles changes all the time. Unfortunately, DeGoey was put himself in a position where I don't think he's pickable now. And then you can't ignore Toby Green, the 156. The problem was he kicked a lot of goals on the weekend, so that naturally would boost his score, but he does have a break even of 17 this week. They, the Pies at home, the Pies should win that, but the Pies are just because of those issues this week might be right for the picking. I'm sure Collingwood supporters aren't hoping that because they've been playing really well, but there's always that chance. But Toby's been pretty consistent outside that 27, the 89, 82, 84, 156. So it's not the high scores compared to everyone else, as I was talking about before, like your Jack Grahams and that, but we know what he can do on any given day. Their draw isn't as easy as some of the other teams that I've mentioned. Jeremy Finlayson's just another real left field option. I know we were mentioning Luke Jackson's the obvious one, but just with Port Adelaide's ruck woes at the moment, and Lycett's still out, but they are meant to get some rucks back soon, but should be playing ruck this week. Baker, since that Collingwood game, has gone 90, 134, 80, 112, and 100. So that's been the movement because of Short playing midfield, and Baker and Vlosten taking that backline role, and Bakes is, I guess it's the kind of situation where Vlosten takes the intercept mark. Baker can win his own ball, but then they kind of do look for Baker as more the distribute. I'm absolutely butchering the English language here, but distribute out of the backline. Bit there with him and Rioli. So it's another real left field option that nobody owns. And can they go for the next 5-6 weeks? Well, Richmond do have a kind of soft draw on the run home there too. Not this week with the Cats, but West Coast's in there. Haven't played North Melbourne yet either, so some of these backmen should continue to go really well. All right, moving on. We've got D. We've gone all them. So continue to scroll. Can't even find. Where are we here? Apologies for my listeners there, as I'm trying to scroll through Facebook to see, Twitter to see who's asked questions for this week. Here we go. S7, returning Hickey, a good shout as a decent scoring budget rucks. Great last year and started really well this year. Turned up with 49% time on ground against English. It allows me to keep Butters in English. Left field option, again, it depends on where you're ranked as well. If you're like outside that sort of 10,000, you've got nothing to lose there, why not? Definitely scores well. Laddams, after his performance last week, and more because he kind of took out a lot of frustration against his old Port Adelaide teammates, may find himself struggling to get back in there. They already got the dilemma with Buddy. Who else? They got Haywood, Reed, and Logan McDonald.
So how many tools can they fit in? So it might be a case where Ladhams goes out, Hickey plays ruck, and then it might be a Reed or somebody like that has to step in and play that second ruck. So yeah, I actually don't mind Hickey. That's a good shout. And over to Facebook and the questions there. Thank you again for the people who've sent these in. And we've got Matty Bryce. Bruce apparently cleared of an ankle damage, worth holding the 1 week, assuming he misses 1 week. Problem is GWS, we can never assume. Getting suspended and injured in the one game, so it probably is 1 week. If you've got the cover and you can get DC to cover you in the rucks, yeah, fine, hold him. You'd hope that he comes back in, but yeah, is it looking like a Luke Jackson? Yeah, Luke Jackson going to be great for 3 or 4 weeks. The problem is what happens when Gawn comes back, and what do you do for those last 3 or 4 weeks? Jackson can still score well, but you're going to get what are you going to get? A ruck? We're expecting maybe 110 for the next 4. We go back to a forward who might be scoring 70 or 80. That's going to be the drama with him. What do you do in 4 weeks? So it's not a bad option, but you'd probably prefer a Darcy or an O'Brien, as you've mentioned there. Matt's also said, why do the Supercoach gods hate us? Well, he said hate me, but yeah, they like to do this, throw a bit of drama in. It's the way it goes. Abdul, who do I bench if Petrarca plays well, as I'm loopholing him, Cripps, HH or Brody? Mate, you are absolutely blessed, and that's probably why you're ranked in the top 40. Again, it would be depends. Well, I think you've probably got to bench HH there of all the options. That seems to be the obvious one. And Mark, Butters, Parrish, and English injury update. Can I have more boost? No, you can't. So Butters should be 1 or 2 weeks. They're pretty confident they think it's going to be 1. Parrish could get up this week. I wouldn't surprise me if he misses 1 more, just because it's a Perth game. Really depends on, I guess, how the Bombers are viewing themselves going forward. West Coast is a very winnable game for both of those teams. So do they risk him this week thinking that they can snag another win? Would not surprise me to see him on that plane. Tim English is a real interesting one. His 12 days are up on their next game. So I guess it comes down to the hour and when his concussion protocols end. I think it's going to be a case where he probably will get 2 weeks. So what happens is you usually miss I think it's the 7 days, but because this is his second one, he has to have a 12-day miss. So it would not surprise me that if there's been any lingering issues that he misses the second week. But then I guess if the Dogs were to sort of go down, or if they even win and they go, well, no, this is a big chance for him to play, be interesting to see how they are trying to twist those days, or backdate the time of when it actually happened and that. So there's no clear guidance on it yet, but I think everyone's assuming he's going to miss 2 weeks, which becomes a bit of a problem for teams that do have him, but I'd still be holding him. He's one of the best forward rucks in it. It's about what cover can you get out of it, and this is where we were talking earlier about that F7 M9 cover, because Tim English can go into your forward line, especially if you've got a DC or another loophole option there, and you can then cover them off of that bench player. So in a perfect world, that's what you want. But even if you are playing for leagues, Mark, maybe you just take the loss for the 1 week and rebound next week. If you've got plenty of trades up your sleeve, then that's a different story, and then you could get aggressive and trade out. So as I've said with everybody who sends in questions, and it gets hard sometimes because everyone's got their own situations where I don't know exactly your background, where your team sits. Most people have full primo team, and I say that with a bit of reservations because somebody put out on Facebook this week, what does full primo mean? So I know a lot of us kind of sit there and say, do we have guys who are, I guess you would look at as keepers to finish the year, where I know a few others were throwing in arguments saying a primo should be somebody averaging 100. I did argue that, saying, well, you may have somebody who isn't averaging 100, but could be averaging 100 over a 3 or a 5 week period, who looks like they could average 100 on the run home. aka Himmelberg's a perfect example of that. Your Jack Grahams, players like that who have had quiet starts but can come home on fire. Those questions are really interesting. So in a perfect world, you're looking at that cover, and what is your cover? Have a look at your matchups. It's a hard one because Melbourne and Brisbane playing early. We don't really have any bench loophole options there. I believe Mitchie Owens is going to be out for another week too, so that doesn't help on that part of it as well. I'm trying to think who else is playing early. Unfortunately, Wiz playing on the Sunday, so that doesn't help us. If you've still got a Hobbs type, that could be good on the Friday. I know a few people will still have him. Dacos is unfortunately playing on the Sunday, so it's not a great week for some of those players. Clark's the Saturday afternoon. The 2 games on the Friday night and the Thursday game really kind of buggers up. And even Roasters, as I said, is the last game, and it'll be probably named on an extended bench. So there is going to be a few people taking risks, and some of those players you might be looking in to bring in might be from, let's say, an Adelaide or from a Collingwood Giants, Port Adelaide perspective, because you'll be trying to wait as last minute as possible to bring some of these players in, depending on how your guys perform. As the question from Abdul before, because that's kind of what he's got. He's got that loophole already in, where he's got the ability to put Petrarca on his bench for tomorrow night, put the emergency on him. If he scores well, great. I'll just bench one of those other players like a Himmelberg, and he'll move his other bench loophole forward, which I think for him's Canelio. So Canelio, who's in his M9 position, will just go forward. One of his non-player rookies come on in the midfield, and then he takes Petrarca's score. If Petrarca completely shits the bed like he has in the past, he just stays there. Canelio stays, and you get 2 bites of the cherry. So no different to what we do with the VC and captain. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. And the best way to at least manage that advantage, that like if you're missing English or that, you need one of those players just to come on for the week. You're covering and not getting a rookie score, because some of these rookies are a bit dire at the moment. Outside of that, it should be another interesting round. Just remember, there's a game tomorrow night, the 2 Friday night games, just as something different as well. So be very aware of that, especially for those tipsters out there. It'll be kind of really interesting one to go with. I think the differences with the vice captaincy and captaincy this week will make things interesting, because it's not the normal top teams playing the bottom teams where there's complete standouts outside of, say, the Bulldogs Hawthorn game. But even in that game, the Hawks have played really well this year, been really competitive. So I still think there's an option there with one of those players. But outside of that, most of these games are going to be pretty tightly fought. So I feel like a few pods will probably stand up. So continue to reach out to us, reach out to the boys. Apologies for not being on the pod last night. My wife's birthday. Happy birthday to her. But I'll be back next week with the boys, and we can continue on and do what we do, and talk footy and talk Supercoach. So all the best. Keep reaching out, and if you've got any other questions, feel free to send it through on the Twitter, and all the best for the weekend. Goodbye.